Skeletons of the Marital Closet by Tang. Chapter 1721. When did things between them start to change? Was it because they had slipped into a routine where they were together day after day? Was it when she acted as his girlfriend for a month? Or was it during that month when they were away and had to rely on each other? Honk, honk, honk. The cars behind began to honk, urging her to move. Summer snapped out of her daze, realizing that the red light had turned green. She quickly pressed on the gas pedal. Cars on the road bustled about. In a private room of a fine dining restaurant, Orm sat in his seat, quietly awaiting Gale's arrival. The atmosphere was quiet and elegant, and the air smelled of perfume. There were footsteps approaching the door. Orm eagerly looked toward the door. Gale walked in with a smile, carrying a cake and a beautifully wrapped bag. "Happy birthday! Sorry for making you wait. I had to grab the cake, and traffic was a bit heavy, so I'm a few minutes late." She grinned. Orm stood up and walked toward her, his gaze gentle. "I told you there was no need to prepare anything. Why did you bring all these things? It's your birthday. How could I come empty-handed?" Gale said. Orm took the cake from her and then looked at the exquisitely wrapped box in her hands. "What's this?" "Your gift." Orm smiled. Gale handed it to him. "You said you didn't want anything, but when you see your birthday present, you're still happy, right?" You can't hide that smile. Receiving gifts always brings joy. It's human nature. Orm took it and asked, "What is it? Can I open it?" "Well, you can, but it'd be better to open it at home. Who opens birthday gifts in front of the giver?" As they chatted, they made their way to their seats. Orm helped her sit down by pulling out her chair like a true gentleman. "I'd like to see what you got me as soon as possible. A few more hours won't hurt. You can open it after I leave." So mysterious. Some pomp and ceremony is needed. Gale sat down and glanced around. "Is it just the two of us?" Actually, ever since she entered the room, she had to put on a calm and relaxed demeanor. She could not appear too cautious and defensive. That would hurt Orm's feelings. They had already made it clear between them that they would revert to being close friends. Celebrating a friend's birthday together was only natural. However, Gale still knew where her boundaries were. She still had to maintain a certain distance, but finding that balance was difficult. She had to make sure she was not too casual or overly intimate. However, if she behaved too stiffly, it may ruin the atmosphere. It was tough. Orm nodded. "Yeah, just us. I didn't invite anyone else." "Why just us?" "It would have been more lively with more people sharing cake, singing birthday songs, and wishing you well. It would have been fun. There's no one else. Right now, it's just me." Natalie was dead. Matthew left with Heather. Mary was no longer his prospective mother-in-law. Being with his parents would be too awkward, as they would inevitably talk about marriage matters again. Chapter 1722. Gale immediately understood. "Ah, two of us are just as well too," Gale immediately said to smooth things over. "I realize I've never celebrated with you. Having a quiet birthday is also a special memory." "Yeah, this will be the most unforgettable birthday for me." Gale felt his words were laden with deeper meaning. However, she brushed off her own thoughts, thinking she was being too sensitive. "Come on, make a wish, blow out the candles." Gale looked at the waiter and said, "Excuse me, can you bring out the cake for me?" "Of course, madam." The waiter was about to step forward when Orm said, "No need, I'll handle it. You can go outside." "Yes, sir. I'll be right outside. Just ring if you need anything." Gale watched as the waiter walked out. She felt the waiter could have stayed. Otherwise, she felt being alone with Orm was a little uncomfortable. She did not come here to retaliate against Shawn and go on a date with Orm. She really came to celebrate Orm's birthday. As Orm unpacked the cake and inserted the candles, he said, "Gale, won't you come help me?" "Oh, okay. I'll get on it." The two stood together, bowing their heads to fiddle with the cake. "I'll do it. I'll do it. The birthday person just needs to make a wish," Gale said. She lit the candles and then went to turn off the lights, the candlelight flickering, casting a glow on Orm's face, only his silhouette visible, his features not clear. Even in the darkness, Orm's eyes were glistening as he was staring at Gale. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Gale averted her gaze. "Make a wish." Orm's gaze made her feel a little flustered. She understood what it meant when a man looked at her like that. Although Orm had let go and expressed that he was willing to be friends again, his feeling was not something that could be let go so easily. Loving someone was an emotion that could not be suppressed. Moreover, it had not been long since this happened. Even if Orm wanted to let go, it would still take some time. Gale softly sang the birthday song, "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you." With her song, Orm closed his eyes and clasped his hands together, silently making a wish. He silently prayed in his heart. "My wish is to be with this woman as soon as possible. I love her. May we be together until old age." Then, Orm opened his eyes and blew out the candles. He cut the first piece of cake and handed it to Gale. "Thank you for coming to celebrate with me today." "You're welcome. It's the least I could do. I know what you're concerned about. Don't worry, we're just having a meal together, celebrating a birthday. Even if Shawn asks, it's the same. We're in the clear. I won't do anything that makes you uncomfortable." Orm's words made Gale soften once again. He was a true gentleman, elegant and courteous. Even though he had been wronged by Natalie, in the end, he still went to collect Natalie's body and attend her funeral. Such a good man. To be wary of him was petty. I know. That's why I came to celebrate your birthday," Gale replied. Chapter 1723. She smiled. "Since we've cleared things up, there's no more tension between us. Orm, happy birthday." She dipped her finger in a bit of cream and smeared it on his face. "The birthday boy needs this." "Keep it on, no wiping," Gale said. He nodded with a smile. "All right." Gale lowered her head and took a bite of cake before sitting down. She was still a little uncomfortable being so close to him. She was only used to being close to Shawn, in a proximity where she could catch a whiff of his scent. Maybe she was overthinking it. Orm was a gentleman and would definitely not do anything inappropriate. A little physical touch was normal. It was not like they were hugging or anything. Dishes started to be served. They all looked delicious. Gale had poor appetite, she was having her period, and her lower abdomen was throbbing in pain, but out of courtesy to Orm, she tasted every dish. "Is it not to your liking? Should I order more of what you like?" Orm asked. No, this is enough. I can only eat so much." Orm held his knife and fork. "You seem preoccupied. I can tell. Gale, whenever you've worn that expression in the past, it's because you've encountered something you can't solve, and I can help you. Now, I can do the same. Gale, I still hope that whenever you're in trouble, the first person you think of is me. I'm willing to provide any help you need, no need to hide anything from me." Gale smiled. "I'm living happily and carefree now. There's nothing to worry about, Orm. You're overthinking it. Unless, you want me to go back to the chaotic life I had before?" "That's not what I meant, Gale. Just kidding. Don't take it seriously, lighten up a bit," Gale said. Orm nodded, his smile gentle and harmless, but his grip on the knife and fork tightened. He deliberately asked that because he wanted Gale to mention the intimate photos of Shawn and Ivy. However, Gale did mention a word. "Why?" What was going on? Orm had personally seen the stack of photos. He could guarantee that Gale would be angry if she saw them. Any woman would be angry to see her husband embracing a female celebrity. However, Gale acted as if nothing had happened. He asked, and she still did not say anything. Did she want to keep it hidden, thinking that family matters should not be publicly aired? Or did she trust Shawn not to betray her? After thinking about it, Orm casually asked, "Gale, Mr. Wood is treating you well, right?" He carefully observed Gale's expression, trying to detect any hint of unease. However, Gale remained very calm and composed. "We're good. Orm, I've realized now that in any relationship, marriage, or any kind of friendship or family relationship, it's not about who treats who well. It's about both parties being good to each other. It's mutual." Gale's answer was somewhat unexpected. "Are you saying that Shawn is good to you and you're good to him?" "Yes, so I said, we're good." She emphasized the we. She and Shawn were a unit. When people in Sea City talked about Shawn, they would think of Gale. When they mentioned Gale, they would naturally think of Shawn. Chapter 1724. Perhaps that was the meaning of marriage. Orm's smile grew brighter, but the chill in his heart became heavier. "As long as you're happy, I'll be content just watching you from afar," he said. "You should pay more attention to the people around you. If you meet someone suitable, let's talk about it later. I am not in the mood for it right now." Orm lowered his head. Gale softly murmured, "Okay." She understood that Natalie had just died, and her picking Shawn was quite a blow to Orm. He was a responsible person, and although he did not love Natalie, there was still some affection after so many years together. However, Orm ended up alone. He needed some time to slowly come out of it. Such things could not be rushed. A little drink? Orm looked at the wine on the table. It's vintage. I had it flown in from France. Before Gale could answer, he had already picked it up. The dark red liquid sloshed around in the transparent glass. It was fine wine. Even someone like Gale, who did not understand wine much, knew it must be expensive and rare. After all, today was his birthday. On this once-a-year occasion, she was the only one accompanying Orm for this meal. He must be lonely too. She wondered when his true love would appear. Orm pushed the glass toward her. Have a little wine. It's good for a woman's skin. Gale, you don't have to drink much. Just a little taste. Afraid Gale would refuse, he left no room for her to reject. He had poured it for her, placed it in front of her, and only asked her to taste it. Gale looked at the wine glass. She really did not want to drink, firstly because she was on her period and it was not suitable. Secondly, Shawn would notice. He would know even if she drank just a little. Gale blushed easily after just a little alcohol, and besides, Shawn would taste the faint wine on her lips when he kissed her. She was already stepping on Shawn's toes by celebrating Orm's birthday. If she drank a little more, it would lead to a fight. I won't drink. I have to take care of Joshua and Nicole when they go to bed later. I can't afford to get drunk with my tolerance, Gale said. Orm looked at her. Just a taste. This wine has low alcohol content. You won't get drunk from a sip, right? He was insistent. If Gale refused again, it would be rude. Besides, today was his birthday. Gale nodded, trying to lighten the mood, teasing, okay. The wine you bring out for your birthday must be a treasure trove, something ordinary people can't taste, right? Orm laughed. That's right, ordinary people. Well, I can't bear to bring it out to serve them. He swirled the wine in the glass, but his gaze was fixed on Gale's every move. He did not miss any of her subtle actions. Gale picked up the wine glass, swirled it a couple of times, then lifted it to her lips and took a sip. The rich wine fragrance filled her mouth. Orm's gaze grew intense. He watched her drink it. He looked satisfied for a short moment. However, the expression was suppressed almost immediately. It truly is good wine. Gale set down the glass. It's a waste to let someone like me, who doesn't understand wine, taste it. Chapter 1725. Well, the wine only deserves you, Orm remarked. You're flattering me now? If I had a bit more alcohol tolerance, I might just finish it, Gale joked. Orm responded, if you like it, I'll send you a few bottles. No need, no need. Gale waved her hand. We've got quite a lot of wine at home. Don't waste the good stuff. She picked up her knife and fork, diving back into the steak before her. The medium-rare filet mignon was succulent, flavorful, with just the right chewiness. Orm stole a glance at her, then at the bottle of red wine, his lips curling into a subtle smile. Just waiting for time to slowly pass by. Meanwhile, outside the restaurant, a sports car halted at the entrance. Shawn stepped out. He tossed the keys to the valet, his expression devoid of emotion, his demeanor imposing. The restaurant manager greeted him upon sight. Mr. Wood, are you here for dining or? Shawn's face remained cold as he directly inquired, looking for someone. Which private room did Orm reserve? The manager was in a dilemma. Orm was a valued customer, not someone they could afford to offend. However, Mr. Wood was even more important among the top-tier guests they had, someone they definitely could not afford to upset. Shawn raised an eyebrow. Are you sure you don't want to disclose it? Mr. Wood, do you have something to discuss with Mr. Lefting? I can inform him. If he knew you were here, he'd surely be delighted. The manager tried to smooth things over, making his words sound more graceful. Shawn glanced at him. I'm here to celebrate his birthday. If he knew in advance, where's the surprise? The manager breathed a sigh of relief. So you're here to celebrate Mr. Lefting's birthday. Mr. Wood, please come this way. Initially, the manager had thought something significant was happening due to Shawn's demeanor, making him tense with nerves. Thankfully, it was just his own overthinking. The manager personally led Shawn toward the private room. Inside the room, Gale was wholly engrossed in her steak. She felt a bit dizzy with intermittent abdominal pain. Perhaps she was just too tired today, desperately needing to head home for some proper rest. Glancing at the time, she had been there for nearly an hour. It was about time to leave. Gale set down her knife and fork. I'm done. Only this much? Orm inquired. I'm full. I don't dare eat too much at night, I'm afraid of gaining weight. Orm gazed at her. You're quite slim, you should eat more. Gale stood up. No, thanks. It's getting late. I'm glad I could celebrate your birthday with you, Orem. I wish you not only happiness today, but every day. She meant the words sincerely. Thank you. Let me walk you out, Orem also said. Okay. Gale did not refuse. She felt it was only natural for Orem to see her off. Besides, they were about to walk into a public space. With other people around, there could not possibly be any harm. She was increasingly uncomfortable being alone with other men, feeling unnatural and awkward. Gale turned and walked toward the door. She was wearing high heels. Though they were not very high, the room was carpeted. The soft and cushy floor unsteadied her step. Plus, she felt a bit dizzy, with things appearing blurry and her body exuding a heat that parched her throat. Orem stood beside her, his arm inadvertently brushing against hers as they walked. As they neared the door, Orem stepped forward to open it, preceding her. Chapter 1726. Perhaps he was in a hurry. His rushed movements as he reached for the door caused his body to lean too far toward her. Gale instinctively shifted aside. She did not want to be so physically close to Orem. In her attempt to move, her footing faltered. Oops! Gale exclaimed as her body began to topple to the ground. Watch out, Gale! Seeing this, Orem quickly reached out to catch her. Yet Gale did not want him to assist her. She would rather fall. The set of photos of Shawn and Ivy happened because Ivy accidentally slipped, and Shawn reached out to help, which led to those intimate shots. Having learned from that, Gale could not possibly allow history to repeat itself. So, Gale wanted to evade Orem's touch. Just then, the door to the private room was suddenly pushed open from the outside. It nearly knocked Gale over. However, Gale took the opportunity to grab the door handle to steady herself. Thankfully, everything was fine. It was just a false alarm. Observing this, Orem silently withdrew his outstretched hand, letting it fall to his side. He unconsciously clenched his fist. Gale's intentions were crystal clear. He could see it at a glance. She would rather fall than let him help. She was avoiding suspicion. Trouble seemed to have come to his door. Gale glanced toward the door to see who it was that suddenly pushed it open. Gale paused in surprise. Shawn? How could it be him? Shawn's gaze fell upon her, assessing her from head to toe. After confirming that she was fine, he spoke lightly. I've come to take you home, Gale. Seeing Shawn, Gale suddenly felt like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She was no longer fearful or worried, feeling completely relaxed. Perfect timing. I was just about to head home, Gale replied. Really? Then I've arrived at the perfect moment. With that, Shawn reached out his long arm and encircled Gale's waist, pulling her into his embrace. Resting against him, inhaling his familiar scent, Gale finally felt at ease. Mr. Wood, long time no see, Orem greeted. Shawn's expression was indifferent, but there was a hint of a smile playing on his lips. Indeed. I heard from Gale that today is your birthday, and she came specifically to celebrate with you. She even left her 2 children with me to take care of. Yes, I'm very grateful to her for celebrating my birthday. This will be a birthday I'll never forget. Shawn replied, life is long. There will be other women who will celebrate your birthday. What does today really matter? His implication was clear, there would eventually be other women around Orem. Furthermore, Gale's celebration with Orem was just a matter of duty and courtesy, not worth mentioning. Orem had nothing to boast about. He would not dwell on such matters. Yes, well, anyway, a birthday is just another day. Mr. Wood, you're a bit late. We've already finished eating, and I was just about to escort Gale home, Orem said. I'm here to pick her up, so there's no need to trouble you, Mr. Lefting. Alright, I'm also relieved. Otherwise, it would be unsafe for a young lady to travel alone at night. Orem was extremely tactful, wearing a smile on his face, revealing no hint of any extra emotions. Chapter 1727. Shawn also looked at him. The 2 men locked eyes, confrontational. Gale kept her head down, not bothering to pay attention to what they were saying. She just wanted to go home and rest as soon as possible. Shawn's hand encircled her waist, feeling as steady and hot as a branding iron. Let's go, Gale. Okay. She replied, glancing at Orem, I'm leaving first, bye. Goodbye. Orem stood at the door of the private room, watching Shawn and Gale leave. Only after their figures completely disappeared from sight did Orem's expression slowly turn cold. Orem, are you? The manager asked. Get lost. Orem turned around and returned to the private room, slamming the door shut with a bang. The remaining birthday cake, steak, and a few other dishes on the table were barely touched. The more he looked, the angrier Orm felt. Where did it go wrong? Why did his carefully planned rumor about Shawn and Ivy not work? Were Shawn and Gale still as loving as ever, without any estrangement? Was Gale really so magnanimous, not getting angry? Not holding anyone accountable? Anyone who saw those photos would think that they behaved inappropriately. Orm had hoped that by sowing doubt and mistrust between Shawn and Gale this time, he could then use the excuse of her birthday to be alone with her. He thought Gale would tell him about the photos, would be upset and hurt, so he could comfort her tenderly. However, the outcome completely exceeded his expectations. Gale did not mention a word, and even flaunted affection in front of him. More importantly, the wine had no effect. Orm looked at the wine bottle, suddenly strode over, poured a full glass, and sniffed it lightly at the tip of his nose. Yes, it was the bottle of wine he brought. He had spiked it with a little something to enhance the mood. After drinking it, people could not help but feel excited, their bodies hot, their consciousness a little fuzzy, completely different from their usual selves, very uninhibited. Orm did not dare to let Gale drink too much. The amount she sipped was enough. If she drank too much, she would notice something was wrong, and then she would suspect him. Gale would not notice a little drop, and Orm could achieve his goal. Unfortunately, what he never expected was that Gale would propose to go home early. In fact, from her unsteadiness while walking, he could tell the drug was already taking effect. Just wait a little longer, 5 more minutes would be enough. What Orm never expected was that Shawn would appear at this moment. With that, Orm's long-prepared plan failed completely. Crash! Orm raised his hand and swept the wine glass off the table, smashing it into pieces. Damn it, damn it. Why did I prepare everything so meticulously, but in the end, it's all for nothing? Why? He roared. What went wrong? What did I not do well enough? I couldn't make Gale determined to leave Shawn, but I didn't expect that what I did this time would have no effect at all. Orm was unwilling to accept it. His eyes were bloodshot. He leaned on the table and stared at the exquisite cake. She had celebrated his birthday with him. Chapter 1728. When Gale sang the birthday song, her voice was soft and sweet. As he made his wishes, he listened to her singing, feeling content. Tonight, it was truly just her celebrating him. Orm did not achieve anything else. It's okay, it's okay. Orm closed his eyes, taking deep breaths. There are still plenty of opportunities. It's just this one time. There's always next time and the time after that. He could not believe that every time, Gale would steadfastly stand by Shawn's side, always believing in him. Even if she believed in Shawn again, this trust must have a breaking point. The street was busy. Cars and pedestrians intertwined. Gale leaned against Shawn's embrace. Shawn did not speak either, carrying her toward the car. Are you angry? Gale asked softly. Shawn, why are you angry? Although she was feeling very dizzy and in pain, her whole body was hot. She still cared about Shawn's mood. What do you think? Gale, you're deliberately upsetting me, Shawn retorted. I'm not. I just came to celebrate Orm's birthday. Nothing else happened. Shawn's expression turned cold. When I pushed the door open, what were you two doing behind the door? I was about to go out, but the carpet was soft. I was wearing high heels, and I stumbled for a moment. I almost fell, and Orm wanted to help me. Coincidentally, you pushed open the door, so I grabbed the door handle and stood up. Shawn lowered his head, looking at her feet. He pursed his lips, and without a word, he directly lifted her horizontally. The high heels came loose and fell to the ground. Hey, my shoes. My shoes fell. Gale called out. Forget it. What? Shawn said, from now on, you're not allowed to wear heels over 6 centimeters. I'll replace all the high heels in our house. You're so wasteful. He retorted, do you want to fall again? I definitely don't want to. I'm not that stupid to fall while walking. Tonight, it's because I feel a bit unwell, Gale grumbled. Shawn was angry again. Hearing her say she was unwell, he was still very worried. What's wrong? Is your stomach acting up again? It's not, it's me. Gale had not finished her sentence before Shawn opened the car door and placed her in the passenger seat. Gale leaned back against the seat, her cheeks flushed. She looked enticing, like a ripe peach asking to be plucked. Securing her seatbelt, Shawn stood up straight, but suddenly, a flash of red crossed his vision. He frowned, looking down. He saw a blood stain on his shirt. Blood? Where did the blood come from? He was not injured. Then it must be from Gale. Gale? Gale? Shawn instantly tensed up. Where are you feeling unwell? Tell me quickly. I'll take you to the hospital now. Don't be afraid. How could there be blood? Where are you injured? Where's the wound? Her lower abdomen was throbbing, making Gale unable to speak. Every time she had her period before, she would also feel pain, but none of them hurt more than today. The pain made her forehead sweat and feel nauseous. Her hands were weak, and her lips were pale. She did not know what was happening. Shawn's face turned serious. Gale, don't scare me. I'll call an ambulance immediately. He could not panic. Chapter 1729. Gale placed her hands on her abdomen, trying to warm it with the heat from her palms to alleviate the pain. However, it did not help. However, when Shawn saw her do this, he became even more alarmed. What was Gale doing, clutching her stomach like that? Could it be? He froze in place. Gale rolled over, curling up into a ball. Coincidentally, Shawn saw the blood stained on the seat and on Gale's pants. Now, he was even more frightened. How could there be so much blood on him, where she sat, even on her pants, and she was still holding her stomach? Was Gale having a miscarriage? The thought exploded in Shawn's mind like thunder. He took out his phone to call an ambulance, his hands trembling. Shawn, don't, it's not necessary. Gale said. Going to the hospital because of menstrual cramps would be too embarrassing. A simple painkiller could solve the problem. However, Shawn could not hear what she was saying at all, just holding her hand tightly. I'm here. Gale wanted to say something else, but a wave of heat surged over her, making her gasp for breath. The sanitary pad must have been soaked through, so it leaked and stained her pants. This time, her period was really troublesome. It must be because it was delayed for too long. Now, all the symptoms were showing up. Shawn, take me home. Gale shook his hand weakly. How can we go home? Let's go to the hospital, Gale, it's okay, I'm here. Shawn did not know what he was saying either. No matter what, you'll be fine, Gale. As long as you're okay, nothing else matters. Having you is enough. Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you. The ambulance is on the way. Gale, what happened in the private room? Is it? Shawn's eyes narrowed. Did Orm do something to you? No. Gale shook her head. She was just having her period. He misunderstood. At this moment, the siren of the ambulance was already approaching. Gale felt both pain and despair. The ambulance came so quickly. Oh God! Would she end up on the front page of the social news in Sea City tomorrow? A woman suddenly experiencing abdominal pain at night, her husband urgently called an ambulance to the hospital, only to find out it was menstrual cramps. It's here. Gale, the ambulance is here. Don't be afraid, Shawn said with relief. He bent down to lift her up, walked quickly toward the ambulance, and carried her inside. The doctor asked, "What's the situation?" She suddenly had abdominal pain and then started bleeding. "There's blood on my shirt, the passenger seat, including her pants." Shawn tried to remain calm as he described Gale's symptoms. At the thought of that blood, possibly his child. No, it was definitely his child. How could Gale suddenly bleed, for no reason? Her period had been delayed all along. She had not gone to the hospital for a checkup, she might be pregnant. Originally, he was supposed to go to the hospital with her that morning, but then the matter with Ivy and him came up, delaying it. Chapter 1730. At this point, Shawn felt immensely remorseful and regretful. Why did he not insist on taking her to the hospital? If he had, none of this would have happened. A momentary lapse in judgment resulted in such serious consequences. The doctor took readings on Gale's vital stats, all of which seemed normal. Yet, Gale had already passed out. To be precise, she had actually fallen asleep. She was too tired, her stomach hurting, her head spinning, feeling nauseous, her body radiating heat like there was a fire inside her. If her body were not so weak, she would have wanted to take a cold shower and then go for a run to burn off this inexplicable heat. The moment Gale touched the pillow, even though it was in the ambulance, she closed her eyes and fell asleep directly. Shawn stayed by her side the whole time, never leaving, holding her hand tightly. It was unclear how much time passed, but Gale slowly woke up. As she opened her eyes, she saw a group of doctors and nurses in white coats surrounding her, and she was lying on a hospital bed. "She's awake, she's awake." The senior doctor leaned in and asked, "Can you hear me? Can you answer? Are you conscious?" Gale nodded and even propped herself up on the bed surface. I. After a short nap, she felt a bit more comfortable, not as uncomfortable as before. The nurse quickly held her down, looking anxious. Don't move, don't move. We're still investigating the cause of your bleeding. Your husband is waiting outside and very anxious. He almost smashed the door to come in. At this moment, Gale wanted to find a hole to hide in. The attending physician looked solemn. All the indicators of your body are very normal. There's no problem at all. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Gale coughed. I'm fine, it's just. Under the scrutiny of all medical personnel, Gale said, I'm just having my period and had menstrual cramps. It's really painful this time. I've never had this before. My husband was too worried and impulsive, so he called an ambulance immediately. Sorry for the trouble, for using medical resources, I'm really sorry. I'll bear all the expenses for this, I'm really sorry. What? Menstrual cramps? Was she just having menstrual cramps? The hospital was in a frenzy, unable to find the root cause. Shawn was outside, looking like he would shut down the hospital if they could not cure her. It was just short of the hospital director personally intervening. Was it just menstrual cramps? In the hospital room, there was a minute of silence. Gale felt very embarrassed. After a while, the doctor said, give her a painkiller and observe for half an hour after taking it. If the pain does not worsen, she can be discharged. Okay, doctor, the nurse responded. After taking the painkiller, Gale leaned against the head of the bed. When she first came out of the restaurant, she truly felt like she was at death's door, extremely uncomfortable, feeling like she would faint at any moment. She knew she was not seriously ill. Now that things had settled down, it was such a big misunderstanding. The nurse saw her expression change. Gale lowered her head, feeling like she was becoming famous in the hospital.